you know, it's, you straight. You did it like, I'm 15, 16 years old. And she laying on the couch. And I'm sitting on the other end, and she laid down on the couch and put her head in my lap. I'm like, damn. He can't be talking about Mary. He's talking about she wanted me to come back up here, and now she on my lap. And I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, what is this gonna end up to? And she stayed a couple more hours. And we decided to go in the other room because it was a suite. We went in the other room and laid down. And she laid down with me, and she kind of like backed up against me, and every time she backed up against me, I would move away and shit, you know.
Y'all, Danny Boy just brought some hard receipts to expose Diddy and Mary J. Blige for luring him into a threesome affair when he was only 15. Rumor has it that he is next in line to take the stand at Diddy's trials, and we all know how there have been rumors of multiple celebs helping Diddy and being involved with his shenanigans. Well, turns out that Mary J. Blige is allegedly one of them. And according to Danny, he is not the only one that she lured into an affair now, if you thought that this was messy. Well, it's about to get much worse than that, because Danny is also coming up with receipts of how Mary allegedly got pregnant with Diddy's baby during their shenanigans, and then Diddy forced her to get rid of the baby. So y'all, does this mean that Mary was a victim, or that she was Diddy's conspirator, and was she cheating on Tupac with Danny Boy? Y'all, this is a crazy hot mess, so let's break it down now. People have been saying that once Diddy's secret started coming out, it was only a matter of time before other big names in the industry got exposed too. That predictions seem to be coming true, because Mary J. Blige's name was suddenly being brought up, and not for anything. Good singer Danny Boy, who was a part of the Death Row Records, had started doing a series of interviews. In those conversations, he made some serious allegations against Mary J. Blige. According to him, when he was just 15 years old, Mary, who was 24 at the time, pursued an intimate relationship with him. But what made it even shadier was Danny's claim that Diddy knew about it and may have been helping to make it happened. He described the music industry at the time as a place where powerful adults created an environment that allowed these kinds of things to take place now, while young artists like himself were left vulnerable and silenced. According to Danny, everything started back in 1995, right after the Source Awards, and there was an after party happening at a hotel, and a bunch of well-known names were in the rooms like Mary J. Blige, Diddy's baby mama Nisa Hilton, and a few other women there celebrating with the crew. Well, Danny said he was in his own room when someone called and invited him to join these festivities. When he walked in and saw Mary J. relied, he admitted he was completely hysteric because he had been a fan of her for years. He hung out for a while and a few drinks with the group and eventually went back to his room. But a little later, someone from the party called him again and said a woman wanted to see him. We're thinking it might be one of the other ladies from the celebration. He made his way over to the room, but when he got there, though, the only people in the room were Mary and
We was talking, I think I left out, and Suge called me back up to the room. He said, come back upstairs, man, or old girl want to see you. This old girl. I think from one of the other girls. Mary sitting on the couch. So I know the girl that he in bed with don't want me. So I went in, he closed the door and shit, and I sit down and I start talking to Mary. And the inside, I'm about to lose it, because I'm actually sitting here talking to Mary. She's sitting on the couch and shit, and we ordered some food and some more drinks.
Now, Danny went on to say that while he was sitting in the couch with Mary, he suddenly got nervous when someone knocked on the door. According to him, she would panic and hid, thinking it might be her boyfriend at the time. KC, the relationship was known to be pretty toxic and even violent back then, so she likely assumed he was coming to start trouble or worse. But it turned out to be a false alarm. Once she realized it wasn't Casey, Danny said she went right back to flirting with him like nothing happened. He claimed that she rested her head on his lap, started touching him, and then things quickly escalated, and according to him, the situation got very intense very fast.
16 years old, and she laying on the couch, and I'm sitting on the other end, and she laid down on the couch and put her head in my lap. I'm like, damn. He can't be talking about Mary. He's talking about she wanted me to come back up here, and now she on my lap. And I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, what is this gonna end up to? And she stayed a couple more hours. And we decided to go in the other room because it was sweet. We went in the other room and lay down. And she lay down with me and she kind of like backed up against me. And every time she backed up against me, I would move away and shit, you know?
You know, Danny claimed that things eventually went all the way, and then they slept together that night, and as if that wasn't already problematic, it didn't stop there according to him. It turned into a full-blown affair. He said Mary would fly him out to New York to spend time with her, keeping the relationship going in secret, and what made it even more complicated was that she apparently led him to believe he was her boyfriend, and Danny said he genuinely thought they were in a real relationship, not realizing she was also involved with Tupac and KC around the same time.
From that time, I had an opportunity to go out to New York and visit her a couple more times. Well, you know, that's why I was kind of confused when I heard Kurt saying that Mary was Pop Girl. Because at that time, she was my girl. At that time, I'm 15, 16 years old, and she flying me in to see her. And you know what it is when a girl back up on you, you young and shit. I'm trying to show her that she ain't phasing me.
You were early on, you was messing with Mary.
Well,
okay,
you know,
how did you think about
that time I wasn't.
You know,
I mean, you know, I kind of was, but wasn't.
That's what I'm saying. How did you think? Like, what did you feel like? Okay, yeah, I like Mary, or you just was like, was she taking advantage of you because you were young?
No, I mean, you know, that was Mary J. Blige.
She was young too.
She was young too, and that was Mary J. Blige. And when I brought that story up, because a lot of people thought that I was like trying to Me Too. I mean, I wouldn't have used her. I got somebody I could Me Too if I want to, but it wouldn't be Mary.
It wouldn't be Mary.
I said it in the conversation of, somebody else was saying how Mary was somebody's girl, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, no, it wasn't. No, it was my.
But here's where the story takes a turn according to Danny. Mary didn't come up with this all on her own according to him. She allegedly learned it from none other than Diddy himself, because back in the day, Mary and D.I. were extremely close. He was working at Uptown Records as she was one of the label's rising stars. And now looking back, it definitely raised eyebrows. Multiple people have come forward accusing Diddy of saying them. While he was at Uptown, according to Danny, Diddy allegedly encouraged him to pursue the relationship, and when he was reluctant to get intimate with Mary J. Blige, Diddy allegedly pressured and coerced him, even going as far as to allegedly threaten to ruin his career if he refused to fall in line. According to Danny Boy, this was the real reason his career stalled after a while. Allegedly, he got sick and tired of being yanked around by Diddy and Mary, and he was done being treated as their plaything and their boy toy. Allegedly, they would call on him whenever they got in the mood to be freaky. Then he had to drop everything no matter where he was, and they flew him out now. I'm sure you don't put two and two together in them comments, because it's sounding a lot like the stuff that Cassie said, and it reminds me of all the stuff that those freak-off courts said that he would do, ordering them to fly out at a moment's notice, and then when he got in the mood, getting furious when they didn't immediately drop everything to cater to his whims. So going by Danny Boy's accounts, Diddy was allegedly been super freaky since the 9s at the very least, and considering that he was running Puffy Flavor Camp at the same time with multiple young men under his roof, y'all, we're going to underpack all of this stuff because that's just one hot mess after another at the same time. But what makes Danny Boy's story even more believable is that Mary J. Blige has had a very long friendship with Diddy, and if you thought that Diddy and Jay-Z were close, Diddy and Mary were practically glued at the hip. They've been tight since the early 90s, with Diddy producing some of her first albums, including her debut, What's the 411, so yeah, we're talking about 33 years of friendship. And Diddy has always given her flowers for being one of the greatest performers and vocalists of all time, and in an interview he said, Mary J. Blige is one of the greatest storytellers in R&B history. She created a lane for women around the world to speak their truth to power, so nobody deserves a success more than being my sister and my best friend. She will forever be a pioneer and the queen of hip-hop soul, who remains an unstoppable force that can accomplish anything she sets her mind to. Now, by the late 90s and the early 2000s, things between Diddy and Mary J. Blige had taken a serious turn for the worse. The relationship hit a little rough patch, and the fallout wasn't quiet because they pretty much stopped speaking altogether and acted like the other didn't even exist. Eventually, Mary opened up about what happened and took full responsibility for the breakdown. She admitted that she was in a dark place at the time and couldn't keep her life in order, let alone maintain a friendship or professional connection with Diddy. It was a moment of real honesty and self-awareness for her. That admission helped clear the air and slowly paved the way back for them to rebuild their relationship and start working together again, she said. The real reason we split up is me not understanding the business the way I needed to understand it at the time. She explained he had a label, and he had a female artist he had Biggie, but during that time, I was really dogging myself. I was a mess on drugs, and any smart man or businessman would have moved away from me. It felt like he was becoming distant, but looking back, I now understand why I wasn't delivering properly. I wasn't taking care of my health, so how can he roll his dice on me? But that's not all, so can we talk about these rumors that Diddy allegedly got Mary pregnant and then forced her to end? The pregnancy, according to Danny Boy, the dynamic between Diddy and Mary during their intimate moments was far from loving or respectful. He alleged that Diddy was rough with her, and even claimed that he forced Mary into using a strap-on to please him. Danny also touched on disturbing rumors that Mary became pregnant by Diddy at one point, but Diddy allegedly didn't want the baby and forced her to get rid of it. Now, according to him, this incident traumatized her so badly that she decided to never have children of her own. After that, she hinted at this in an interview where she said, "I have nieces and nephews forever. I'm always watching out how people are scrambling for babysitters. I don't want to go through that. I like my freedom to go and move and do what I want to do. I don't want to have to tend to someone all the time. Right now, that's where I'm at, but I don't think it's having kids going to happen." But here's the thing, Mary had to stay close with Diddy for years, even through all this drama. So when she suddenly started to act like they weren't really tight anymore recently, people were confused. It always seemed like they had moved past all that stuff like it was water under the bridge, but suddenly she did a full 180 and started saying she cut ties with him ages ago, trying to make it look like they were never that close. But word in the street says that there's only one reason for that change. Apparently, the feds have been digging around and found some shady stuff involving her from way back in the day, and now she's trying to distance herself from Diddy before things get messy like a bunch of other folks. But according to insiders, her affair with Danny Boy is a huge reason why she was so terrified of the feds looking into her. Now, the statute of limitations on her inappropriate relationship has probably expired, so she probably can't be legally charged with anything. But then again, the last thing she wants is to be exposed for being a creep who knowingly engaged in shady shenanigans with a teenager, especially because she and Diddy allegedly forced him into the freak-offs. Just when you think that things couldn't get messy, new reports are saying that Mary might actually know the real story behind what happened to Aaliyah. But get this, there's talk that Diddy and his crew could be in the know too. Now, we all know how Aaliyah tragically died in that plane crash right at the peak of her career, but for years people have whispered that there was more to the story than just a simple accident. What a lot of folks don't realize is that Aaliyah wasn't even supposed to be in the Bahamas that day. The music video shoot was originally planned for Florida. Everything was ready to go, but then last minute, the director Hype Williams decided to switch the location to the Bahamas without even checking with Aaliyah first. And once they got to the Bahamas, everything seemed to be going smoothly. In fact, they finished the video shoot earlier than expected, but because they wrapped up ahead of schedule, nobody had arranged transportation back to Florida. Yet Aaliyah reached out to her friend Lenny Kravitz, who was kind enough to send his private jet to pick her up. But then things took a strange turn. Hype Williams reportedly stepped in and stopped her from getting on Lenny's jet, saying he had made other plans for her and the crew. When the flight Hype arranged finally showed up, it was way too small for safety carrying Aaliyah and everybody else. The plane was overloaded and heavier than it should have been. And to make matters even worse, the pilot was said to be high at the time. Now, Aaliyah apparently sensed something was wrong and at first refused to get on the plane, but according to some reports, she was given a sedative and carried onto the plane. While unconscious, tragically shortly after takeoff, the overloaded plane crashed, killing Aaliyah and everyone on board. Mary J. Blige has always spoken about Aaliyah's death with a sense of deeper meaning. Not long after Aaliyah's passing, Mary J. Blige publicly shared her belief that it was a spiritual myrrh and hinted that there was more to the story than what we've been told.
You know what I'm saying? I was a spiritual, whether people know it or not, because God don't kill people. You know what I'm saying? Whether people know it or not. And I could go deep, but a lot of people I would have to really bring proof, you know what I'm saying, for what I learned. And she just was cut down in the prime of her life. And it's so unfair, and it wasn't time. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't, I believe it wasn't her time to go, because from what I know, it ain't supposed to go down like that. And just simple obedience, like, you know, your gut always won you. That's that your gut never lies to you. And something like luggage and clothes and jewelry and all this madness that we worship is called false idols. We need to really look at the bigger picture right now.
Then Mary J. Oblig didn't name any names publicly, but according to those people close in the situation, she allegedly believed that Diddy might have had something to do with what happened to Aaliyah. Now, word around the industry was that Diddy stood to gain millions from Aaliyah's death, and that the detail about her possibly being before getting on the plane, it disturbingly was similar to the stories we've been hearing from women who've accused Diddy of allegedly them too. And if that wasn't wild enough, the rumor mill has been spinning with claims that Aaliyah had damaging info on both Diddy and R. Kelly, and everybody knows R. Kelly manipulated Aaliyah into mirroring him when she was just 15. So if she really did have dirt on both of them, especially in light of everything we're now hearing about Diddy, it's not hard to imagine that there may be some truth hiding in those whispers. So yeah, Mary was in deep with Diddy, but she made it clear that she was done with him, and to make everything very clear, she made a post on Instagram saying, "Unfortunately, a lot of you met me when I lacked boundaries and was a people pleaser. Let me reintroduce myself. I burn bridges as needed." Now, honestly, it's not surprising that Mary would want to distance herself given what she's been accused of having freak-offs. But get this, Danny Boy is not the only freaky situation that she's been accused of being in. She's also been accused of being involved in Diddy's freak-offs with others, including the super freaky ones allegedly. But y'all, there's a whole lot to unpack here, and it is just the beginning. Let me know what you think about this mess in the comments, and then check out this next video.